My name is Peter Denby. I'm Managing Director of Denby Transport of Lincoln. We're a fairly broadly based logistics group involved in international haulage, specialist haulage, warehousing, and training. So we cover most aspects of the haulage and logistics industry. And we have a foot in both camps, if you like, because not only do we employ drivers and forklift drivers, but we actually train drivers and forklift drivers to acquire their license. So yeah, we've been established for since 1961, and all of that time in Lincoln. So yeah, we've been in transport a long time. Well, the thing about transport is it's an incredibly broad field. So you can find all sorts of different jobs within the transport arena. So you could, for instance, at one end, do a job where you do a straightforward 8 till 4 day and just work 5 days a week. At the other end, in certain cases with our drivers, on international, they can be away from home for weeks at a time. So it is an incredibly broad spectrum, and obviously some people have a requirement for night working, some people have a requirement for shift working, so you could find yourself doing 4 days on, 4 days off, early mornings, afternoons. There's just any sort of any type of different job and opportunity available within the transport sector. Certainly, as far as our company is concerned, being involved almost exclusively in international transport, they do get to travel to a wide variety of different places and countries, and they enjoy that. They enjoy the culture of different countries, and they're not really very often going to the same place twice. They obviously will visit certain places regularly, but it's not like going to the same place every day. So I think there is that aspect to it, and there's quite a lot of freedom as well. So, as long as a driver is sticking to his schedule and his route plan, there is quite a lot of individual freedom in terms of how they manage their time and their day once it's been agreed with their transport manager, and particularly for international, because if we leave the UK and deliver to Marseille, that's a 3-day journey. You're not actually plotting the driver's hours every single hour of the day, so he or she can choose when to stop, when to have a break, how many hours to do, etc., etc. So quite a lot of freedom in some cases, in some jobs in transport. The demand has never been stronger, I think, for lorry drivers, and the pay is probably reflecting that now. So pay is sort of inching up quite quickly in the logistics sector. If we're specifically talking about driving a truck here, a new entrant would normally start on a Class C license, which is a rigid truck, which is a smaller truck, not necessarily a small truck, but smaller than the largest trucks. I guess an industry average might be £10 an hour, something like that. But bear in mind, our industry often has longer hours than most. So you're not necessarily going to be limited to a 40-hour week, depending upon the job and the application, etc. Going on from that onto a C+E license, we'd probably be talking an industry average of £12 or £13 per hour. As you get more experienced and you perhaps specialize, then as you go up the experience tree, as it were, then the job rates would rise with experience and speciality. First of all, I would encourage people to look at a career as a driver, because it's it's very varied and really quite interesting. There is an initial hurdle which can be quite difficult for some, which is that really somehow or other you have to find around about £1,500 to pay for your initial license. That's your category C license. And once you've got that, you can drive a rigid vehicle and then roughly the same amount of money again to be able to drive an Arctic. Now, it's Arctic drivers, or Cat C plus E, which are in highest demand at the moment. But basically, anybody with a license, I would suggest at the moment, would probably not have too much difficulty getting a job. So clearly, what you have to start with is the vocational license. If you can find I don't believe there's much government funding around that at the moment. I mean, certainly the industry lobby groups, our trade associations are pushing hard for the government to support people in those that early training, because it is quite a hurdle. But assuming that you have achieved, you've got your license, you've got your Cat C license, then I would suggest there's two different ways of trying to find a job. Simply contacting local hauliers to ask them if they've got a vacancy. Alternatively, approaching a driving agency to see if they have a vacancy. So that's either working for a haulier directly or working for an agency who's supplying vehicles to hauliers and other users. Anybody who has a requirement for a lorry driver in the course of their work. So, for instance, a lot of food delivery companies and that sort of thing. There's a whole gamut of people who require drivers. It's obviously not just hauliers. Demand has never been stronger, as I said earlier, and now would be a good time for people to look at that and see if they could have a change of career, or indeed, start from school leavers are a bit difficult because there are ways to achieve a license from 18 onwards, but you have to go through a few hoops to get there. Traditionally, it always used to be 21 for a lorry driver. It is a little earlier now, but it's very difficult for people to go, for instance, from school at 16. You can't do that. But maybe you could approach a local haulier to see if you could be taken on in the warehouse and perhaps achieve a fork truck license, and then get some experience loading, unloading vehicles, securing loads, and then perhaps have this career progression from warehouse operative, fork truck driver maybe, through to Cat C. And indeed, many employers will probably be prepared to fund that once they know the individual and have probably had them on the books for a year or 2 years, so that they know that they're going to make the grade. I'd probably highlight two key things. They need to be practical people who are quite happy working with their hands, and they need to be patient people, because unfortunately drivers spend a lot of time hanging about for various different reasons. If you want to be paid to read a book, a driving job, strange as it might sound, is probably a good one, because you probably spend more time waiting to load, unload, or for instructions to come through than you do driving in some circumstances. So yeah, I think they need to have a practical nature. They need to have an interest and a love of driving and travel, really, be it this country or further abroad. And they need to be patient and have good people skills.